Great to have you in. Sam Amick's been covering the NBA for a long time, senior writer for The Athletic, Sports Illustrated, locally Sacramento Bee, and we love bringing him on. I think this is a great finals. I think the playoffs have been all sorts of drama and fun, from KD getting bounced early with Kyrie. It is interesting. These finals are KD's former team and Kyrie's former team, and that's not lost on us. Let's talk about this, though. Our view is Boston's better defensively. They made KD struggle. Giannis wasn't as efficient. Jimmy Butler, though, ate him for lunch multiple times. So my feeling is Steph will be fine because they have multiple players you have to defend. What is Steph's recent history against this Celtics defense?
Yeah, it's pretty wild, Colin. When I looked this up, I was shocked. If you take out the last matchup, remember Marcus Smart falling on Steph Curry's ankle and that injury that cost him the late regular season.
Yeah.
The 6 previous games, Steph Curry averaged 35.1 points per game, 52% from beyond the arc, around 50% from the field. And that's obviously pretty damn interesting when you talk about a Celtics defense that just doesn't give up that type of production to anybody.
You know, you talked about this during the break, and I think you make a really good point on this. You know, people complain about the officials all the time, even my friends. And as a sportscaster, I can't go to a sports bar. I can't hear people complain about officials. I'm just over it. And by the way, the Miami Celtic officials were dicey. But officials, when you get physical defensive teams, how a series is officiated, this could be a series in which we're complaining about the officials a lot, right?
For sure. And I think it's one of those where it's going to have everything to do with, you know, the power struggle between these two teams, because the Warriors offensively, we know what they do. They are a free-flowing, egalitarian system where they need to be able to have all those back cuts and double screens and do what they do. But if the refs are going to look at it with a freedom of movement, you know, perspective, that bodes well for Golden State. If they're going to let Boston have a 1980s style playoff basketball, you know, touch them up, Bulls, Pistons from back in the day, then the Warriors are going to be in trouble, especially if you look at guys like Jordan Poole and some of the Warriors defenders that aren't as stout as what the Celtics are bringing to the table. But if that whistle keeps coming time and again against Boston, then they can't do what they do defensively.
Yeah. You know, I'll say this about Boston. Now, if I was a Celtic fan, I would say, hey, we won back-to-back Game 7, so we're a clutch team.
Right.
And you can make that argument. But I watch this Boston team, Sam, and they look so tight. Sometimes at the end of quarters and at the end of games. And there's just this mountain of experience on one side and then a mountain of optimism on the other. And I said this the other day. I could see Boston outplaying Golden State and losing in 5 because they can't seal games off. They can't.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what it feels like to me is even if it's even, Golden State wins.
Right.
If Boston slightly outplays them, I think Golden State wins. I think Boston has to really control the physicality of this series. That's my interpretation. What say you?
Yeah, I mean, experience-wise, I'm going to give it to the Warriors. You're talking 6 finals in 8 years. No, you can't trump that. But the Celtics, 4 conference finals in the last 6 years, a ton of experience. Obviously hadn't kind of pierced through to this stage until now. And I think what you are alluding to and rightfully hitting on is that on the offensive end, Boston's, you know, occasional stagnant problem, if you will. Marcus Smart, you know, some nights looking like Pete Maravich in terms of finding guys on the floor. And the next night, you know, it's Game 7, taking 5 ill-advised shots down the stretch that make you scratch your head. And, you know, those games when Tatum and Brown are not shooting enough in the fourth quarter. The offensive inconsistency is something that I think, you know, makes the Celtics a little bit vulnerable. And then again, on the defensive end, can they dominate like they have against this Warriors team that is, you know, so different offensively than they were with Kevin Durant? They have layers to them. They have multiple threats, and they're going to make it tough for sure.
You know, it's you have a lot, and you don't have to be specific, but you have this labyrinth of sources. You're in these locker rooms, and I could see your sources saying, we are over the smugness of the Warriors, and that the league privately would really, that not only would coaches be rooting for Boston, but what Boston, the message they're sending is be coachable, play defense, be all in. That's a great message to send to your star players. You don't have to have the best shooters. You don't have to live. When you talk to a lot of your sources, my sense is there's a lot of people in the league rooting for Boston here.
I don't know if, I mean, I think the previous iteration of the Warriors, that would have been the case even more, right? Because it was a super team. They went out and got Kevin Durant. Like, it's not enough that you won, a title and then 73 games. You had to go get one of the best players on the planet. I actually think, Colin, this team, has deserved and earned a lot of respect. When you talk about Klay Thompson and what he came back from after 2 years, you talk about Draymond Green looking like maybe he was going to be one of the worst contracts in the NBA, like he was falling off. All of a sudden, if he had played more games, he would have been Defensive Player of the Year. Steph Curry kind of shepherding them all the way through this stage. So I would probably argue that I think both these organizations, both these programs are among the most admired across the league. But your point on Boston for sure stands. I mean, they are everything that's right within the league: defense first, sacrifice, and then trying to find a way to share that ball on the other end too.
So I got to ask. I want to ask you a Jimmy Butler question, because if you look at the Eastern Seaboard, Philly, Washington, New York, Brooklyn, Kevin and Kyrie choosing the Eastern Seaboard was rare over the last 10, 15 years. It's been Miami that has the ability in a winter league to get free agents, to get stars.
Sure.
And they feel like, to me, Pat Riley's the ultimate deal maker. They feel like if Boston doesn't win this, Miami's coming back and Jimmy's going to have some help on the offensive end. We've just been talking about different things, and throw something out there to me, because I just don't see them saying, okay, you can't have Tyler Hero on the floor when Duncan is, and Jimmy's knee inflammation, and Bam's more of a 3, and I think everybody knows it. What do you think Miami does in the offseason with Butler? Any ideas?
I mean, I think it's going to be hard. The other day on ESPN, they mentioned a Joel Embiid dream scenario. That's not happening. The Kyle Lowry move, obviously at the end, did not have the impact they were hoping for. I don't know. Is there a way to get Zach LaVine down to Miami? You've got the Bradley Beal thing that certainly seems that he's leaning towards re-signing in Washington. I think the options are limited, but I do think that gravitational pull, if you will, of kind of what the Heat have built, the fact that Jimmy is still at the front end of this massive contract, like he needs help.
Yes.
And the Heat, he made his money this year. He had a few bad games in the conference finals, but they wouldn't have been anywhere close to that Game 7 without him. And they need the rest of that investment to be worth it, which means, like to your point, he does need some more help. And if Lowry is not going to be healthy enough to get it done, they're going to get creative. That's what Pat Riley and that crew does, but I'm not sure what that looks like just yet.
Sam Amick, The Athletic, does great stuff. Good seeing you again, my man.
You too, Colin. Thanks, brother.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from The Herd, or go watch a few segments from other shows on FS1.